Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. It's Kimberell Eventide here once again to discuss tonight's topic, angels, aliens, and fairies. So the reason why I wanted to do this video is because I wanted to bring some clarity to the idea of, can aliens possibly be angels, or fairies, can they be angels? Let's look at all three of the categories by doing some research and putting the puzzle pieces together to see how they all connect, how they relate, and how they are also very different. And there are three different types of categories for a particular reason. They all kind of stand for something else. And we really get an idea of what they reflect within ourselves when we get to know these groups differently and understand their similarities and their differences when we compare them all together. One of the things that I saw recently Gaia's channel talk about was, are we mistaking aliens for angels? And there is an idea where it could possibly be that aliens have been humanity's messengers and they have helped with the spiritual evolution of humanity. So we get this idea that very much aliens can be connected to the angels. But let's look at it a little bit closely. I have the original transcript from the Pleiadians from 1975, which they actually do a really great job of discussing this topic, just to give you an idea of why they want to be considered separate from angels and the importance of it. So I'm going to start with the Billy Meyer contact report. This is one from February 8, 1975 at 3 a.m. So this was an important message that Billy needed to get. So Billy usually calls on Semyase and the Pleiadians by just having his own kind of revelations. And so he's talking and he's trying to get these affirmations of his own thoughts. So at this point, we have Billy contacting Semyase, or the other way around. And Billy says this: since our last meeting, I've occupied myself a great deal and intensely with so-called UFO literature. I found that you star people, if I may call you that, are always described as supernatural, heavenly beautiful, as guardians of mankind, nearly as omniscient and as teachers. It is said, therefore, that you are virtually living in spiritual and consciousness-related perfection. My reasoning and impression suggest something totally different in this respect, and I cannot help but assume all of these things to be lies. And then Semyase, the Pleiadian, this female Pleiadian that has been talking to him, she answers him and she says, you are engrossed in very profound thoughts, and they are consistent with the absolute truth. It is really as you say. The earth human is sometimes incapable of bearing his own responsibility and recognizing, although he must do so. So he shifts everything to something that he, in his fantasy or in his mind, places above himself, things that he simply calls on, which shall relieve him of his own responsibility. So when people name and describe us in the manner you have just mentioned, it is nothing more than a delusion to themselves. They simply attribute it to us and turn us into something perfect because they're not yet ready to take personal responsibility for themselves. But we are still very far away from the state of perfection as well, and must continue to develop ourselves constantly. We are not the so-called superhumans or super beings that people on Earth like to label us from their own lack of knowledge and within their own imagination. We are not necessarily teachers or missionaries or trailblazers. We have only the dutiful task to preserve the evolving and already existing human life in the cosmos. This means that we endeavor to keep order and monitor a certain life. And we generate contracts here and there with inhabitants of different worlds, if our directives allow us. Single out some of them and provide them with explanations, but only if a race is developing towards a higher level and slowly starts thinking on their own. Then we slowly familiarize them with the thought that they are not the only thinking beings in the universe. Now and then we also assist telepathically to instill certain cognitions toward the discovery of technical inventions that are needed at the present time. And then she goes on to say this: we are neither guardians nor overseers of terrestrial humankind. We feel obligated to them only because our ancient forefathers were their forefathers prior to their escape from Earth, due to self-inflicted catastrophes by a few power-hungry people before escaping to the Pleiades, exactly as you have deduced and calculated in the last few decades according to your own knowledge. So what she's saying right there is that Pleiadians are not angels. They don't consider themselves the angels of humanity in any way, because they themselves wouldn't dare put themselves on that level of what we think angels to be, because they are still developing and they are in the physical form that is still experiencing life and is still reaching their own spiritual development. And so Semyase is telling him that we're still learning, like you. Like humans, we're still learning too. So Semyase says this. She goes to explain, now this is important because it shows a little bit more about the opinion of angels. The Pleiadians have reached a certain level of spirituality where they have all awakened to this place where they understand that every single living, aware being in the universe goes through stages of their own spiritual development. And eventually they get to the highest stage where they basically have processed and reflected and learned so much throughout their incarnations that they are moving into the light body experience. And the light body experience is more what we would attribute to what the angels are in, because they are just pure energy and they can take shape in any form. Very similar to fairies, which we will get into. So Semyase says this: a human being may become hundreds or even thousands of years old when he has reached a certain spiritual and consciousness-related state of relative perfection and a correspondingly high and sound way of living. But after that state of about 40 to 60 million years, the spirit no longer requires a purely material body and becomes a half-spirit body. It then lives only in half-material form for an additional 60 to 80 billion years, and in such lofty spheres that we cannot any longer communicate with it from the purely material human level, except when there exists a very high consciousness-related and spiritual level of evolution. After 60 to 80 billion years of spiritual development in life, the half-spirit form, the half-material form, respectively, transforms itself into the first pure spirit form and enters the level of Arhat Ether Sata. And so this is the highest level of, basically spiritual attainment, just before going back into the all and going back into the universal consciousness that many people would call God, the actual creation. So it takes that long to have this spiritual development, which brings you into the actual pure spirit experience, where you no longer experience yourself as a material being or even a half material, half spirit, but actually just pure spirit. And that's where the angels are. That's what they represent. They are pure spirit. So I hope that this brings in some clarity about the Pleiadians and how they are not humanity's angels. And I wanted to talk briefly about personal responsibility. I thought that this was brilliant for Semyase to do through Billy Meyer channeling her to bring forward a very important message for humanity: personal responsibility. Throughout this book of the transcripts, there is spiritual wisdom and lessons pertaining to the idea that every single being must go through its trials, its obstacles, its triumphs, its successes in order for it to reach the certain spiritual level, which is wanting to be attained, to become pure spirit or recognize that you are always pure spirit. So it's very important to have personal responsibility. There is a temptation for sometimes humans to put on the responsibility towards angels. And when you do that, then you're putting all of your problems and all of your stress and your worries, which is okay sometimes to do because it feels good to us to know that there's a higher power, protecting us and guiding us and loving us. But when we are solely looking to the angels to do everything for humanity, that's when humanity will never change. So that's why the Pleiadians have kind of a no nonsense in that way, because they're very serious about their monitoring human life and being big brothers and big sisters in a way where they are helping humanity grow and develop. So that's why she wanted to say that it's important for humans to not just expect more advanced beings, higher beings to do all the work for them. As I have said before, in many ways, we can't expect for the Pleiadians to change this world for us, and we can't expect them to come and save us. So a lot of times there might be this, like I said, a temptation for people to wait until the angels come. But the Pleiadians are saying right here that it's more important to have the personal responsibility and to understand your own personal power to actually achieve everything that you want to achieve here on Earth and achieve together. If you want to make a better world together, then it's about cooperating together and building it together, not waiting for some other outside beings to do it for you. Now, the merging with the higher beings will happen when humanity reaches a higher state of consciousness and they can accept these kind of higher beings into their reality, when all get on that same level and are not fearful of it and it's not posing a threat to their way of being. So that's the Pleiadians' opinions on angels and what they say that they are not. We are not angels. We are not going to do the work for humans. They must learn how to evolve on their own, because if you evolve on your own, and you know this in your personal life, if you do anything on your own without somebody else doing it, then you truly learn it. It really becomes part of you, and it becomes something that you truly master, and then you can really move on. Once you master something, then you can really move on. So this is a very important step for humanity to do on their own, because if they're waiting for others to do it for them, then it will never become truly authentic, and they will never realize their true power within to really change this world. So that is what the Pleiadians wanted to say about that. I wanted to show you that. Now, I want to leave the fairies till the end, but I wanted you to direct your gaze to this picture here. Now, this is from this book, The Alchemy and Mystics book, which is all about basically all of the different philosophers and all of the different mystics in the past, all the way from ancient Greece to Egypt to all the different societies coming together and basically trying to help humanity awaken, as they have learned and remembered certain things about their own spirit. They tried to pass it down to others. And many times they form secret societies. You may know them as, the Gnostics, the Illuminati. All that has been part of humanity's past. And it was only to keep this information guarded and safe until it was ready to be released to the masses and for everybody to kind of understand, and for it not to be such a threat to, I guess, the churches, and to some other religious powers that might have seen it as a problem. Well, one of the philosophers was Robert Froud, and he created this hierarchy of angels, which is actually based on the Book of Enoch and some other types of spiritual messages that have been passed down. So what I wanted to do was look at the hierarchy of angels to go over their different powers, so you can start seeing them in a different light than angels, or well, than aliens, and then understand where aliens are and what they do versus what the angels do. Because everything has its purpose in this universe. And so the reason why we have the hierarchies of angels is to really reflect something within ourselves, but within our universe at large. So this is the hierarchy of angels, and I know it might be a little hard to see, but I'll just read it for you at the top here. So this one is, so the deus is the Latin term for deity or God, and that's in the very top there, where you see the sun in the center. The next level, number 1, is mens, but it's really Latin for mind. So it's mentis, and it is really the mind. That's what the universal mind, that's what Robert Froud is saying here. So it's the mind of God. And then right below the universal mind of God, of creation itself, you have the seraphim. And the seraphim, if you know your angels, I have this really great book that I was going to read here. The seraphim are the highest order of the angels, and they have multiple wings. And they are known as the inflamers because they are the angels of divine fire, love, and light. The seraphim have the power to purify us with the lightning flash and the flame they hold, the unveiled light of God, and are the great illuminators. Next to God, they are the most light-filled beings in all creation. Seraphim have 6 wings and surround the throne of God and continually sing a hymn of praise that translates as holy, holy, holy. So you may have heard this before, but seraphim are basically the highest order of angels. And so they are pure light, pure energy. So very much they could be other extraterrestrials or other beings out there, but they would have to be those that have evolved to a place where they are just pure light form, and that they are solely living in the universe with the desire and the duty to illuminate all other beings, to send forth love, to bring forth that burning light of creation, and to inspire in that way. So if there are beings that could live at that level of being and attainment, well, then I don't see a problem with them being the seraphim. But there is a particular way that the seraphim have looked, because that's how they have been described from the past with the Book of Enoch and some other types of books. But after the seraphim, the next order is the cherubs or the cherubim, and they are the next closest beings to God after the seraphim. And they are known to look like little children, very innocent, and they are known as the one who prays or the one who intercedes. And they appear in Babylonian art and writings, and they have the influence over all. They hold the energy of the sun, the moon, and the stars. And they are Cupid-like beings, which they're portrayed like in art, but they are more vast cosmic beings. So they're only looking like innocent children, but they're actually very ancient, very pure energy. And they are cosmic. They hold cosmic universal forces within them. And they are the ones that kind of oversee all prayers and they are the closest to relay the information back to the universal mind. So you have the seraphim that are all loving but protectors of the imperishable flame, basically, of the universal mind, of the creator source. And then you have the cherubim that next come. And then the thrones are the third, which is they're hard to describe, but they're described as whirlwinds or wheels of light and fire, and their wings are joined to one another like great fiery wheels full of eyes. They're the wheels of the Merkava, the chariot throne. They carry the energy of God in the form of divine justice, and they allow the will of God to be made known to the ministering angels. So that is almost like a vehicle. And that's why the Book of Enoch, when it talks about the thrones, there has always been this idea and theory that the thrones could have been a UFO because of the spinning wheels with the many eyes, could have been lights and some other unknown vehicle that comes from another planetary system that, just humans have not seen before. The next one is dominions. So dominions are the order of angels that really are in charge of certain denominations, and they are in control of different aspects of God's energy through the energy of mercy, wielding power without oppression. They manifest God's majesty and rule over the level where the spiritual and physical realms begin to merge. So they're starting to actually be more hands-on, or at least they're involved in more of the physical world and the spiritual world. They're somewhere in between the two planes, whereas the cherubim and the seraphim are solely in the spiritual planes because they're so close to the spirit of the universal mind. So the dominions are closer than to the physical world. Next, we have the virtues, and these are the lower level angels that still are pretty high up in terms of working miracles on earth for others. They basically bestow grace and help to bring order. They value certain values and virtues, and they help to bestow it or inspire it in others. The 7 virtues, you can attribute them to different types of angels, as well as the archangels. Basically, they represent the different virtues. They also inspire the saints, so they have more of a hands-on approach to humans, where they help to inspire virtues within certain humans or within other beings. So they have been the ones to really to help to bring visions and dreams to the mystics and the saints of the past. Jesus was accompanied by 2 virtue angels when he made his ascension into heaven. The virtues of heaven, on seeing Jesus rise, surrounded him to form his escort. That's what it says. The next is powers. So the powers are also known as authorities, and they're also called the potentates and dynamis. And they are the ones that protect our souls, the keepers of the Akashic records. They have the task of keeping demons under control and in balance in this world and in the universe. They prevent demons from overthrowing the world or darkness to spread too much. They are often seen as the angels of death and rebirth, and they help to guard the pathways to heaven and guide lost souls back onto the path to heaven. And then the next is the principalities. So the principalities are the guardians of nations, and they oversee different work below them. They watch over countries, towns, cities, villages, and sacred sites, and they help to guide religions or religious leaders over their nations and their places, and they work with guardian angels to inspire us too. And then you have the archangels. The archangels are the ones that we know as the different few that people can call on directly. They also hold and represent different virtues. So Archangel Gabriel many times will represent the keeper of animals and a messenger angel. So you can communicate to Gabriel with those certain topics in mind and then get some inspiration through that way. The Book of Enoch names the seven: Uriel, Ragiel, Gabriel, Michael, and Seraquel, and Haniel, and Raphael. So it also has different variants because I've seen other types of names to describe the archangels, but this comes from this book here and is described in the Book of Enoch. And these will continue to build relationships with humans. So these are the ones that have direct oversee, basically helping to guide humanity, helping to bring the certain types of law and virtues into the world. And they are the ones that help to control the movement of the stars as well, the seasons, the waters on the earth, as well as plant and animal life. So then they start to kind of sound a little bit like elementals. The archangels also kept record of all the incarnations of every human being's soul, and they have been the ones to keep tabs on people, understanding what they have done, good, bad, how they can make a better choice next time. And they often are the conscience within us that can tell us, what's a better pathway to take. The next level is the angels. There are millions of angels helping in many different tasks. They guard all physical things and people. Everything in creation is looked after by an angel. Angels bring cosmic harmony and beauty to our lives, and they include the angels of love, joy, courage, peace, hope, faith, freedom, and harmony. There are many references to angels in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, but they are not usually identified with a particular name. And angels can also include guardian angels. And guardian angels' tasks are to protect and guide certain souls. Everybody is said to have guardian angels. I have a personal belief that our guardian angels are those that are our loved ones that have gone on before into the spirit realm, and they still protect and watch over us. So they can be somebody very close to us. They can even be people that we have never met before, but they might be tied to us by an ancestry lineage, and they might have swore an oath, or it has been part of their spiritual development to look after all of the ones that come after them in their lineage. They could also be animals too. Animals could be guardian angels. There are many animals that do take on that form as well to help those in need. So angels is really a energy that can take on any shape and form. And this can be said to be very similar to the fairies, which I will read here. This is Brian Froud. Now, Brian Froud, like me, understands that even though there might be good and bad fairies, or at least mischievous fairies, and fairies that are dangerous and those that may be not so smart to get involved with, there are also fairies that have cosmic powers, and they are very similar to what the angels are. I'll read this right here for you in one of his wonderful books, The Good Fairies and Bad Fairies on the other side. So, angel of spiritual empowerment. Angels are the thought forms of God and the heavenly messengers. The word comes from the Greek angelus and the Latin angelus, meaning messenger or courier. The Sanskrit angras means a divine spirit. They are form builders of the universe and embodiments of divine will, perched at the top of a continuum of spiritual beings, flowing downward to the smallest of fairy creatures. Angels could be called grown-up fairies. Or to put it another way, fairies are like little angels. The hierarchy of angels and their various functions is extremely complex. There are angels of healing, angels of music, angels of peace and blessing, angels of growth and nature, angels of beautiful places, angels of countries, and many, many more. All phenomena of thought, of emotion that are subjective to us are objective to angels. Angelic emotions, aspirations, and consciousness are all external, visible, pulsing, and flashing through their bodies. The exquisite beauty of angelic faces is due to this. These beings are literally open and transparent, revealing pure intent. All angels meditate cosmic and spiritual forces and will come to our aid when we call upon them. The angel of spiritual empowerment is a particularly radiant creature. Ask for his help as you embark upon your spiritual journey. So, Brian Froud has this really beautiful book here where I can show you. These are all basically fairies of light. And so he attributes these to being angelic powers because they represent different values and virtues, like the fairy of courage, the fairy of renewal, the fairy of intuition, the fairy of transformation, the fairy of connection. And they are high vibration. In fact, this is the healing fairy, the healing goddess fairy. I don't know if you could see it there. Absolutely beautiful. This lady is the archetype of the great goddess of regeneration and healing. The blue auric forces surrounding her radiate the universal love we came from and will return to. Call upon her for healing of the body, soul, and spirit. So there is two schools of thought, it seems. There are some people that do not think that fairies are angelic powers, but in many ways, they do help humans. So there are a lot of similarities between angels, and we still have the idea that some fairies are in pure energy form, and they take whatever form that they want. If they are truly an ancient cosmic being, then they're going to take on a form of their will. And like the Pleiadians suggested, they're basically in that evolution where they're just light. They're just light and energy, and that's it. And they experience themselves in that way, and they can do as they will, and they can do what they want with their experience in that form of being light energy. So many of these fairies, with their own will and intent, will be pure, unconditional love, and they will emanate that. And that, to me, is part of helping to spread the fairy magic, because part of magic is to have things that we wish and desire to come true. So for humans to believe in something and want something and make a wish, well, then fairies have been said to grant those wishes. So in many ways, it's very similar to angels, but there is also fairies that need certain deals and exchanges to work with them. So there is a hierarchy of angels and fairies as well in terms of spiritual development. Basically, the rule of the thumb is this: the older a soul is, the older a soul experiences themselves as, because this is really about awareness. We're really all the same age, but it's about awareness. So the older a soul awakens into their own divine self, the closer they get to this unconditional love. And when they get to that place of unconditional love, well, they can't help but help others and to grant wishes and to use their power for good, and to help others. But there are some fairies that can choose to use their powers in another way. Angels don't have that choice. And this is the difference. Angels are strictly those energy forms that purely resonate, pure intent, and all the goodness in the universe that we aspire to ourselves and we see help bring in the goodness into our worlds. The angels represent that, and in many ways, it's what we have to look up to and what we can aspire to in our own spiritual development of where we are heading. And it's a great reminder for ourselves to take the higher road with people and to, to embody some of the virtues and the graces that the angels do. But the angels don't have a choice when it comes to their intention. They are not going to have the same type of ego, and many fairies will not have the same type of ego as well. But it really depends on how old and how ancient, how cosmic of this energy really truly is, and what they decide to do ultimately with that energy and with all of this growth and the spiritual development and all of these incarnations that they have gone through. What do they decide to do? How do they decide to experience themselves as within this universe? So there are many aliens that are at this level. And the Pleiadians, in my 7 rebirth cycle video that if you want to watch it, it's all about the Pleiadians talking about the 7 rebirth cycles of how basically every soul starts off as a single-celled organism and works its way up, crawling on the planets, looking towards the sky, and eventually gathering reason and intellect. And it doesn't matter what planet you're on. This is the normal pattern of evolution. So you start off as a very simple single-cell organism, and you move into this complex, multi-dimensional being, which you typically already are, but you're experiencing yourself. So it becomes this subjective experience through this growth, and that's what the spiritual development cycle is about. But there is a level that the Pleiadians are working towards or have gotten to, and all beings eventually get to, is getting to the level of universal cosmic love. And what that means is basically embodying the same virtues or objective type of consciousness in terms of looking at situations and then not judging harshly, but understanding where everything comes from. The Pleiadians have gotten to that place where they are in this universal love, and it is basically on their way to evolving into the spirit form. And so they're moving into light bodies. So they're not quite angels yet, but basically they're on their way if they so choose. Each individual being has their own choice and where they go. And although we are one, we are also fragmented, and we represent the whole in our unique ways. So with the Pleiadians talking about the 7 levels, it's important to understand that, like Robert Froud did with this chart here, that everything stems from one source, but we all experience ourselves uniquely from a subjective point of view. And then we move up the ladder according to our own personal growth. And our personal growth is really about taking the time to live our lives fully, authentically, and reflect on everything that we have done, make amends, change our ways, and move forwards and heal. And as you do that, you are moving up this ladder of spiritual development. And so there is no limitation in this universe that says that you, Ryan, or you, Noreen, or any of you, there's no limitation in this universe that says that one day you cannot aspire to become an angel. I want to leave with this story by this one right here, Emmanuel Swedenborg, who wrote a lot about angels. And in fact, I just got his book that's called Heaven and Hell. And so if you're an Elven Soul member of my channel, we're going to look at that book together. And we're also going to look at divine wisdom and love from him. Emmanuel Swedenborg became really known for his writings about angels. And in fact, even Immanuel Kant, the famous philosopher, who was all about reason and logic, he referred to him as being very reasonable, agreeable, and remarkably sincere, and a scholar. Emmanuel Swedenborg was a Swedish, pluralistic Christian theologian, a scientist, a philosopher, and a mystic. He became best known for his book on the afterlife, Heaven and Hell, written in 1781. There is a story in his life that has been passed down about him, about a little girl who lived close to Swedenborg's house in Stockholm. Knowing he saw angels, she asked him to show her one, and after many requests, he said yes and took her to a part of his garden covered by a curtain. When he pulled aside the curtain, she saw herself. Behind the curtain was a mirror. To Swedenborg, she was an angel in training. Seen in its own right, a spiritual inner self is an angel of heaven. And while it is living in the body, it is also in the company of angels, even though it is not aware of being so. And once it is released from the body, it joins them. A merely earthly inner self, though, when seen in its own right, is not an angel, but a spirit, and is also in the company of spirits, while it is living in the body. However, it is with spirits who are in hell, and after its release from the body, it joins them. The deeper levels of the mind, or the minds of people who are spiritual, are actively raised up towards heaven, because that is their primary focus, while the deeper levels of the minds of people who are merely earthly are actively turned towards this world, because that is their primary focus. For all of us, our inner levels, which are levels of our higher mind, are turned towards what we love above all, and our outer levels, which are levels of our lower mind, and are turned in the same direction as the inner. So this was what he wrote, and he has many thoughts on angels, heaven and hell, and he came to the conclusion that we basically are all angels, basically in disguise, in the idea that we have this capacity to show our angelic nature as much as our demonic nature. And so it's about what side you bring out. And every time you allow that angelic side to come out more and more, and you act like your angel self, your higher self, then you are reaching back up that ladder to become an angel once again for creation, or to experience yourself as an angel. And this can very much be a level of bliss for many souls, because we see people today, they work in the way that the angels do, where they just selflessly give of themselves, and they don't care what they get in return, but they're just giving, giving, giving. And this is very similar to what angels do, just to a more higher power, because you don't have any physical needs as an angel, but you have still physical needs in your physical body. So you're going to have some needs, but when you're an angel, there's no more needs. So you just become the embodiment of divine love. So you can practice actually becoming an angel on earth. And in many ways, we are basically training ourselves to become angels, those of us that want to ascend to that level of experience. It is a personal choice, and it can take however long it needs to for yourself. But there are many, many souls that would say that once you obtain that place where you can ascend to that state of reaching your higher self and bringing out that angelic side of yourself, that is true enlightenment. And that is when you have real peace in your life and you start to have real happiness, because you really no longer expect anything. You don't need anything for yourself, but you become, once again, just this unconditional love and embodiment for others. And yes, this is not a state of being to force yourself in at all. This is one to just slowly awaken into when you are ready. So that is from the writings of Emmanuel Swedenborg. So I highly recommend him if you want to learn more about his ideas, because they were really respected by Kant and many other philosophers for having both logic and spirituality and bringing it all together with reason to bring us a greater understanding of angels and even a greater understanding of demons too. But I hope that this gave you some more clarity in between the idea of angels, aliens, and fairies. I did want to read something interesting here as last bit on fairies. In this book, I found it kind of neat. I don't know if everybody's going to agree with it, but I thought it was a good part to read anyway. So the elemental kingdom, the children of the angels, are the magical nature spirits who create abundance and balance on the earth when they are honored and appreciated. They often appear as colored lights or swirling mists. Nature spirits help us understand the rhythm of nature and our place within the world. The elementals work closely with the angels of sacred sites to help us understand what our ancestors knew instinctively. The importance of the correlations between the phases of the moon, the tides, and the seasons. Our planet Earth is a living being that is also evolving through the lives of the creatures she nourishes. The planetary angels, devas, and other nature spirits help the Earth through all her stages of growth from the very beginning. So that's the connection between fairies and angels. I just thought I would bring in that bridge there for you. And not all fairies are going to be angelic powers in that way, where they will not demonstrate divine or unconditional love towards humans. But it just happens when, as Brian Froud said, when they become very grown-up fairies. So let's go to the chat and talk together. I know that we have lots to say. I just wanted to say one thing. I believe, too, that I have actually met angels in disguise as humans. I believe that angels absolutely can take the forms of people we know or people that we don't really know, and they just kind of appear in our lives. I've had 2 incidences where I needed a lot of help in my early 20s. I was going through something really difficult financially, and I was all on my own. And I had help from 2 total strangers at 2 different times in my life. And it was remarkable because they never wanted anything from me. I asked to take their address so I can send them money back, and they would not have it. And they just hugged me and left, and I never saw them again. And I absolutely believe that they truly were angels. And in fact, the cab driver that really saved me from a very dire situation late at night, he picked me up in his cab. I had no money on me because my purse was stolen. I was frantic. I didn't know what to do. So picked me up in a cab, was very kind, very understanding. And I was let out at the police station to make a police report. And the moment that I turned around, he was gone. And I did not hear the sound of the wheels, nothing. And I, to this day, was always really amazed at that experience because it felt something very as much as divine intervention to help me, because I was really struggling that night. I do remember. And I think people have a trouble believing in angels sometimes, because a lot of times we think, well, why would there be angels that save some people and others that don't save people? Or why do some angels help others and other people die? Well, the only thing that I can think of that really makes sense is that everything runs in time, and there seems to be the angels in flow in that rhythm of when souls are ready to leave, when they're supposed to leave. So it seems to be that if you're running into a situation where it's not time yet for you to move on, that's when an angel comes. And then if it is time for you to move on, well, then they become the angels of death, and they help you transition to the next stage in a loving way, acting sometimes as just energy and light. But I think that's the discrepancy that we have. We have to think about their perspective and understanding and having a really higher perspective of time and the age of all souls and what is supposed to happen in terms of being in rhythm with the celestial movements of all the planetary alignments around us, and when souls are supposed to come into the planet and when they are supposed to leave, so that there is this created harmony and balance within this world. So it seems that angels are really in tune with that, and that is why they save some, and some they take with them to ascend. That's the last thing I wanted to say. Let's go to the chats, everyone. I'm so glad everyone stopped in. I know it was a later night, but I'm glad that you were able to jump on. Brenner James, I just posted something about this synchronicity. I love it when that happens. Well, good. If you want to comment something about angels, let me know down below, Brenner. Nice to have you. Noreen, you really enjoyed the elf fair video I shared. Oh, good. The ASMR, good. Ryan, oh, I'm so glad that you liked this. Yes, I always was very interested in angels and fairies. One of the archangels that I really work with is Haniel. She really, even though they're supposed to be androgynous, fairies are, it depends what form they take, but very much I feel Haniel is this feminine protector and has helped me in my life. I've been always very close to Haniel, even though I resonate with more the fairies and the elves. In some way, maybe Haniel's making me grow up and becoming an older fairy. And then we have Many Wars, White Wolf. Kind of like if a parent did your homework, you wouldn't learn anything in the process. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's why angels cannot do all the work for us. Even higher beings, such as aliens, cannot do all the work for us. You'll never have, Arcturians or Pleiadians or other types of beings that we know are advanced, and we know that they're in this higher place of consciousness. They're not going to just change our world completely for us or do all of the work. It has to be authentically humanity's. Otherwise, it's never really truly part of their evolution. It's us, and we're all in this together. But I think if everybody needs to have that personal responsibility. And so I understand what Samase was saying with that. Many Wars, White Wolf. So there's an actual Lucifer in the universe. Well, Lucifer is another subject, but Lucifer, I think, is supposed to be a seraphim, so supposed to be the divine light, was said to be the most beautiful angel, full of light, and then just rebelled. I don't know what you want to relate that to be to you, but I think we can all individually interpret that in the way that we want. Lucifer stands for, I think, two different things for two different people. For a lot of people, Lucifer stands for temptation and punishment and revenge on humanity. And then there are some people that think that Lucifer stands for bringing the light of awareness and bringing knowledge to humanity, helping Adam and Eve eat that apple. So I personally am not going to say what side I really stand on, because I actually see them from both perspectives and I understand them from both perspectives. So I'm not going to say that I really stand on either side, but I do get what people are seeing when they're saying, well, I see Lucifer this way and I see Lucifer this other way. So yeah, I mean, it's really just about your own personal interpretation, I guess, what Lucifer is. Maybe we can talk about Lucifer a little bit more. Noreen says, Lucifer is bringing light into the darkness. Lucifer and Satan aren't the same. It's an ancient psyop. Yeah, I know that both the Quran and the Bible say that Lucifer became a Satan, in the idea that Lucifer only became Satan when he fell. So I guess that's why people say Lucifer and Satan are exactly the same. If you want to expand on that, go ahead, Noreen. Many Wars, White Wolf, I'm glad. I was feeling sympathy for him, thinking he wasn't really bad. Yeah, I mean, there is lots of different ways to see it. That's for sure. Noreen, Satan isn't even what is popularized. Satan is the angel of judgment. I can't remember the actual word used. Yes, I know the Gnostics do, I think, see Lucifer, and I think the Luciferians, which is another branch of mysticism, sees Lucifer as the bringer of light and wisdom. So I guess that's what you can maybe do more research on if you want to learn more about that perspective. And if you want to learn about Lucifer being the temptation of mankind, the punisher, then you can go more into the religious books. These two perspectives have caused such a problem in history. I just want to say this is what causes both kind of the mystics and the religious to kind of butt their heads against each other in the way that they see Lucifer. But I'm glad you brought him up, because he is an angel, so why not talk about it, right? Let's go to someone else here. I thought I saw Ryan. Did you have something to say? Just wanted to see that picture. Yes, this picture is Robert Froud, and you can look it up on your own. The Hierarchy of Angels. So you'll be able to find it. I had the Alchemy and Mysticism book, which gives me all the picture graphs and the puzzle pictures. I think that's what it's really called. So, a lot of these pictures are now on the internet for you to find, and it's just basically all of the different spiritual messages throughout the ages, trying to help humanity in many ways find their way back up that ladder. Hi, maybe speaking truth. Can't stay, just dropped in to say hi. Well, hello, and thank you for dropping in. And Noreen, I bet Lucifer's related to fairies somehow. They're pure light, and he's the personification of revealing light. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think to be a fairy, even Brian Froud does go into this in the book, you still have to be in the elements. So I don't know. I wouldn't make that judgment here. I'd have to think about that. But I think that the fairies are always elemental beings, but they can reach a level in their incarnations where they're just the embodiment of love and unconditional love and understanding and compassion and empathy and granting wishes all the time, left and right, and spreading their fairy magic. That is a very different type of fairy than sometimes what other fairies may be about, but that's their particular, I guess, their personality or their pathway. Let's see. Maybe seeking truth. Noreen, it's funny you say that. I recall a verse in Corinthians 11:14 that says, Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. I'm not trying to be a Bible pusher, but it's food for thought. Yeah, I always thought that is really, I mean, that verse has single-handedly, I think, caused a lot of issues in the world sometimes, because even though I think it was done with good intentions, it makes people distrusting of others and very cautious in the way where if something is full of light and if something is full of love, then, and if something is not, I guess, from the Bible in terms of being a creature, like angels and aliens, even though they're so full of love, and I have seen this a lot, even on my channel, there have been people that have said, oh, well, Satan also appears as an angel of light. So what they're basically saying is that nothing else can be a being of light except for the angels, or except for what is in, their religious beliefs or their values and their book. And I think that this universe is far more vast than that. And so I'm very cautious with that verse, because I do believe that it has kind of limited people in trusting what is truly part of light and what is not. And I think that there's been a lot of issues with that verse, but I'm glad you brought it up. Ryan, an ambassador of the Galactic Federation and the Fae. Yeah, that's the thing, is like the Pleiadians are very similar when Tolkien made his elves, in the idea that the elves themselves are not angels, but they have lived longer, so they're a little bit wiser. They have learned lessons of war and killing each other. They've had just one horrible event called the Kinslaying, where the elves, some of the Noldor elves, killed the Teleri elves of the sea. And that was a problem, right? That was the kinslaying. But they learned. And so by the third age, they're incredibly wise. And Tolkien can call them the wisest beings of Arda, or Middle Earth. So in many ways, that's kind of where the Pleiadians are. Like, they're just a little bit older than humans. They're a little bit more wiser. They have lived more and have learned. So they're not angels, just like the elves of Tolkien they're not quite angels, but they are just a little bit older, and they're on their path, they're on their way to ascension in a way. And then humanity will follow. That's basically the pattern. Many wars. You always wanted to be an angelic warrior as a kid. Well, I have news for you. With the spiritual development and focus and believing and trusting in that path, your soul will eventually experience yourself as an angelic energy, a light body form that can choose to be angelic in its nature and behaviors. So you can choose to be, a tormentor to humanity in a light body form, which is what the jinns or the demons are in many ways, when they're invisible and you can't see them and they're causing problems. But you can also go the other way, and you could choose to actually be an angel of light, warrior, whatever you want to call it. And that is something that all souls will eventually experience through their spiritual development. So one day, you will be there. And it's nice to just keep in the back of your mind. It really helps you stay on the path, and make the right choices in life, because you just have to remind yourself, like, where you're heading towards. Ryan, she can always break down complex concepts to anyone. Oh, thank you so much. That is a great compliment, because sometimes I I don't know if I did it. So I really appreciate Namaste. Thank you so much, Ryan. That really helps because I know that I'm bringing in a lot of different abstract ideas and concepts. And so that really makes me feel good that I'm doing it. And if anybody doesn't understand something, please comment or send me email or anything, and I'll be happy to, explain a little bit more, because I'm just speaking from my heart and basically my intuition. And sometimes it's hard for me to express what's up in here. I'm trying my best. I am. Alice in Wonderland, isn't that diversity with angels the same as is it with the Fae? Yeah, basically. The thing about the fairies, which I really like, is that there isn't higher or lower hierarchies, because it seems that with the angels, you have almost like obligations and duties. And so it's like a corporation, right? You have like the bosses, they delegate, and you have the lower angels, and then you have the worker angels. And it seems that there's definitely a hierarchy with angels, at least with the information that we have. And it seems more that I would like to say, and just intuitively what I can remember, is that fairyland or the fairy realm doesn't have that same hierarchy. You don't have higher angels or higher fairies, lower fairies. I think that you can have those fairies that seem to be wiser, the ones that have lived longer. They are more peacekeeping, more in harmony with the others. They're trying to be mediators or bring all the other fairies together. But there certainly isn't, I guess, a delegation, because there's really no duty for them. They're not really put onto humanity to do certain things in terms of the way that angels are. But fairies do it out of the pure enjoyment, and just because they are one with the elements. They are water beings. They are earth spirits. They cannot help but actually be connected to all those elements. And so angels unconditionally help and guide and love humanity, because they are basically part of humans too. So they don't really share that elemental, I guess, connection that the fairies do, but they still might represent still the love in nature and care for all the animals. But the elemental kingdom of the fairies doesn't have that type of delegation that the angels do. They are just a little bit more, I would say, freer. Free spirits. But they do have, like I said, you do have those that are wiser and they're closer to having more intellect and reason. And then you have those that are more, they think more like animals, and they have more of maybe a lower level intellect or reason, but there's no hierarchy though. But it's just kind of something that the fairy realm will start to know, like, okay, so who's the ancient wise fairy to go to in need, and versus the other fairies that we don't talk to, but we're still getting along with and coexisting with, because it's all about being together in nature and really bringing in the diversity of the ecosystem. But yeah, it's a little different in terms of the hierarchy, I would say. Oh, Serena Light. Thank you. You guys are so sweet. You make me feel good. Well, it takes one to know one, right? I really enjoy talking with you all. I just think that it's just a really great way to just kind of bounce off ideas. And like I said, I'm just glad to kind of just bring all these ideas together. I hope that it gave more clarity for those that are looking for more information on Pleiadians, because their original message from 1975 was, we are not humanity's angels. We simply are helping to monitor life and helping it to move forwards, but we wouldn't call ourselves necessarily the angels that you would have as far as the thought forms from creation. And you know, it's a very hard thing because we have to suspend our belief a little bit, because angels really represent the pure spirit, the pure energy forms of creation. So they embody all these virtues and ideals within them. It's very similar to fairies do, but these are on cosmic energies, and they are delegated to help all beings in the universe. And so one of the things that I'm learning as an elf soul, you know, more in touch with the elemental nature of things, I'm learning, and on my personal journey, to connect more to the angelics and to move with them, so that that helps me in life and it helps me ascend, because I don't want to stay down here forever. I do want to ascend. You know, that's part of my journey as well. I think a soul gets to a point where they're just like, I'm just done. I'm done with the material world, or at least I want to experience maybe something else, something more that maybe I'm a little bit more limited down here. And so you get to this place where you're ready for that. And the angels are great reminders to help all beings, whether you feel like a starseed and that you have been part of another alien civilization before Earth, or whether you feel like just a fae, you know, just part of the fairy realm. Well, you can always use the angels as an inspiration to get to the highest level of attainment of union with all things and all beings in the universe, because that's what they represent. That unconditional love, no judgment, total objective perspective. And they're just a great reminder for us in our own lives and what we can all inspire towards. So I hope that this helped. I'm so glad that you all stopped by, and let me know if you have any other questions, and I'll see you all on the next video. Definitely, if you want to study with me a little bit deeper, I go into all the different spiritual messages around the world, and I have a private list for my Elven Soul members who join my channel. And that's when I basically do discussions on how to ascend and reach a state of enlightenment through studying and learning and kind of absorbing the information from around the world. But of course, we're all about applying here too. But it's always great to just read something and get some reminders and some inspiration and other ideas. So if you want to join my channel and join the community, I would love to have you. Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you all, I think, tomorrow. So take care, everyone.